Hi, I'm Patrick O'Neill from North Carolina. I'm 67 years old, father of 8 children. And I want to try to be a little lighter here. Unlike Mark, I didn't really like to be in that jail in Brunswick, Georgia. I posted bond. But I'm supportive of him. I'm supportive of him. So as a father of 8 children, you can imagine I have a very wonderful wife who was pregnant for 6 years and nursed for 15. She's probably on the Zoom. Hi, Mary. Anyway, the number one question that you're asked from your children as a father of 8 children is, can anybody guess? It's 2 words. I'll tell you. Where's mom? Okay. I was at my first Pax Christi USA convention National Assembly in Memphis in 1977. I'm a native New Yorker, although I've lived in North Carolina a long time, but my ties to Pax Christi are very deep. And I really have enjoyed my relationship with Pax Christi. I've probably been to a dozen National Assemblies over more than 40 years. I wanted to, since the award that we're receiving is in the name of Father Dick McSorley, and many of you who are young may not know much about Father McSorley. He was the one who coined the term, "It's a sin to build a nuclear weapon," and there was a poster that had that quote on it. He was the founder of the Peace Center at Georgetown University and would frequently join us and be part of Plowshare action communities and so on. But I wanted to tell a neat story about Father McSorley briefly. Once I was in the Pentagon, and I spent an awful lot of time at the knee of Phil Berrigan and Dick McSorley and other people who were mentors to me at the time, Bill Ofenlock, who's here, and to learn. And so one time I was at the Pentagon, and back long ago, you could actually go inside the Pentagon and protest in the building. They have like a mall in there. And so Father McSorley and Phil Berrigan and the priest, Father Mulholland, Charlie Mulholland, who we named our Catholic Worker House for, they were walking together and talking. So I just kind of went along and listened to what they were saying. And at one point, a young graduate from Georgetown University, a guy that looked like he was in his early 20s, a civilian, ran up to Father McSorley and said, "Father McSorley, I just want to say, I went to Georgetown. I always admired you. You stood outside the ROTC office and protested, and your car was full of bumper stickers. You rode your bicycle, and I just always appreciate it." He said, "But I believe we have to have a defense." And McSorley, without missing a beat, said to him, "Well, of course we have to have a defense. We just can't kill anybody." And the boy walked away like the rich young man, like, But anyway, it was nice to be around Father McSorley, and I did have the good fortune, to write stories and interview McSorley and the Berrigans and have stuff published in NCR and in Catholic Worker Papers, and that was great. I want to say, too, one of the questions that was like the prompt that Rosemarie asked was, what have we learned from this? So I learned that my going to prison was much easier than my wife, who had to stay home with all the children in the Catholic Worker House. I learned that being in prison during COVID is harder. I also learned that the next time I'm in a plowshare action, I won't wear a camera on my head, which is what I did for this one, which produced one of the most unusual quotes in the testimony, in the transcript of our case, when the U.S. attorney heard me spit on the camera, and he said, "That's Mr. O'Neill spitting." So I'm not going to wear the camera next time. I appreciated too, so often we're the bearers of bad news. That's a tough thing to do. And I think Kevin did a nice job of not being a bearer of too much bad news, but I think we have to sometimes lighten that up in whatever way we can. And I was pleased, Brother Tom, with what you brought up, Arthur Simon. And I ran a youth program at my parish at St. Anastasius in Douglaston in the late 70s. And I would take the kids on field trips to Bread for the World. They were here in New York, to the Warrior Sisters League, to the Catholic Peace Fellowship. I don't know what their parents thought when they came home with all these buttons on, but Arthur Simon came out and met the kids and talked with them way back then, and I've been involved with Bread for the World ever since. When I get a chance to speak, I try to tell people that all of us have lived our lives under the lie of deterrence. And really, deterrence has been a huge problem because I think it's what's made us sort of lethargic, not really worrying too much about living under this 24/7 nuclear cloud. And deterrence really, it's a lie, it's racist, but also what deterrence does is basically says, don't worry, these nuclear weapons are props. We would never use them. You know, they're just there, you know, they're just there to deter others and to keep us safe. And so I was just with Bruce Gagnon and Ray McGovern last week on a panel down in North Carolina, and Bruce basically laid out the truth about U.S. policy. And he said, you know, really the United States is really interested in having first strike capability and to possibly engage in first strike. As you know, if you follow the Nuclear Posture Review, which is the review that the Pentagon does of nuclear posture for our country, and keep in mind, we're all here in a room sitting around talking about peace and love and getting rid of nuclear weapons and so on. But while we're doing that, tax dollars are paying for the people who are sitting around tables in the Pentagon discussing the use of nuclear weapons, discussing the end of the human experiment. They're not props. These weapons aren't props. And what Bruce Gagnon pointed out, you know, with the United States developing this sixth branch of the military, which is the Space Force, which somehow came in under the radar, people probably don't know much about it, but we now have that. Like Cape Canaveral is no longer Cape Canaveral Air Force Station, it's Cape Canaveral Space Force Station. We have this new branch of the military that is really one of the ways that the United States is trying to dominate space, which gives us first strike capability, which will give us first strike capability. And in the Nuclear Posture Review, the United States never agrees to no first use. We maintain the right to use nuclear weapons first. And that's something that we should really keep in mind when we hear the argument that deterrence is keeping us safe, or it's done it for 80 years, therefore it'll do it forever. And that's, of course, absurd. Bruce pointed out that the military, basically, he's heard these two quotes. We will dominate space, he heard some politicians say that, and that there was something in the Space Force's master plan. We are the masters of space, meaning the United States. So what we're doing now is trying to make people believe that there's some integrity in our process. And meanwhile, we're trying to gain a first strike capability. Lastly, I would like to say that if we really want to do something to reverse global warming, I don't think it's possible if we don't abolish war. I don't think global warming can be stopped while we're willing to kill each other, even conventionally. Nuclear weapons just don't fit into any calculation that we can reverse global warming. It's the opposite of that. Just like all militarism is the opposite of God. I now tell people, which I'll tell all of you, that I'm in favor of abolition of the 3 Ps, the Pentagon, police, and prisons. I've had quite a bit of experience with all 3. I've been arrested at the Pentagon 7 times, including with my wife and daughter. And when I was listening to Ray McGovern, who incidentally, Ray McGovern, former CIA agent for those who don't know him, and a devout Catholic. In fact, I bring Holy Communion to him and his wife. She's got medical problems in the local hospital in Raleigh. And So Ray said, quote, "I'm Catholic through and through. A Democrat, no more, no more." And I'll end with Kevin's quote. And Kevin, I liked your message of hope. I really appreciated that you focused on hope. You're here with your 3 beautiful little children. And he quoted Cornel West. And I'd like to say to all of you, I want to be part of an organization of holy fools. Is that a little? Hey, hi there, Emily. That's my youngest daughter up there.